I'll begin with Ms. Rukshanda Naz, and as Ombudsperson for Protection against Harassment of Women at the Workplace, you get a lot of cases, and recently we've seen some very landmark, decisions coming from your office also that we must really appreciate. But I wanted to ask you that, what are the instances of victim blaming that you see in the cases that come to your office? And how do you really deal with that? Is there sort of counseling of them? And I know that under the law of 2010 for protection of women against harassment at the workplace, it's part of the government's responsibility and the Ombudsperson's office to also increase awareness around the law. So for example, every institution or organization has to display the law in public, at the workplace, and there has to be a committee at the workplace which must include at least one woman member also, a high-level committee that hears cases of harassment. So G, over to you, and we would love to hear, of your experience and how victim blaming plays in. Thank you.
Thank you and Assalamu alaikum. It's really honor because I still remember when Asma Jahangir first time I met her in Peshawar High Court. At that time, I was just an intern. So since then, we were coming to Lahore, and my initial activism was purely because of her inspiration to me. So I think I want to congratulate her daughters, and particularly AGHS and her organization for continuing this legacy. The victim blaming, because victim blaming, being a woman ombudsperson, the first of all, when I joined this office in 2019, the first of the criticism was because of my background, because of being a human rights activist. And they said, ab to mardon ki khair nahi hai, because, they just blame the institution, and they believe if the woman ombudsperson is there, there will be no justice for men in that institution. Then basically, for institutional framework, I was thinking, because this is the only period for me, and I was not sure whether they will let me continue this with my pace or not, because after joining of this position, the first attack happened after 2 months when my vehicle was robbed. So I thought this is the only time where I can make some baseline or institutionalize some of the things. So we started setting up committees, and then some of the action, those can be continue even if they throw out an activist ombudsperson. So anyhow, luckily we set up database, and we sent notices to all government institutions. And the first 2 years of our office, we given time to everyone to set up standing inquiry committees in each institution. And then the institution, they refused to set up a standing inquiry committee for harassment. So we issue fine notices to them. So luckily, now we have a quite good number of standing inquiry committees. Then in the cases, because when we're talking about the victim blaming, even within this thinking exists within the government setup, because I still remember on my first week, most of my team members, they said, look, the women are coming, and they just bringing fake cases. They believe if the women can't perform, most of the time women make fake cases. So they try to teach me how to be a good bureaucrat and how I can reduce chances of access to my office, because my office was open. So they believe your office not going to be be successful, because they think she's not a good bureaucrat and everybody can access to her. So I listened to them, but I said, look, we are here on the public money and on the taxpayer money, so we have to. So first of all, we made our office accessible through citizen portal, and then I sat with a law department and the social welfare department, and we set up two focal persons at each district level. One is a pro bono lawyer, and another was a social welfare officer. We not only notify these two focal persons, we try to train them if the woman is coming with harassment complaint, so she will be not harassed again once in her office, and the same we did with cybercrime and other institution. Then we activate Provincial Harassment Watch Committee, and I must acknowledge KP government here, because at the senior level, all the secretaries and the judiciary and other stakeholders, they cooperate. So I try to utilize that goodwill and the champion within the government institutions, and we were able to get good focal person, and we meet every quarter and we discuss about the compliance of the cases. At the same time, we set up National Human Rights Institutions Focal Persons Committee, and in that committee, every quarter, we discuss, because the harassment at workplace, there are some structural gaps in the law, and most of the administrative cases are coming rather than the harassment cases. At the same time, luckily in 2018 amendment, provincial amendment, we got access to the government, to the education institution that was not exist in a main legislation in 2010. So that was a major breakthrough for us, where we intervene in different universities, and in these universities, we were able to set up their inquiry committees. At the same time, I was able, because I don't want to talk more about the Islamia College judgment, because that is still with the governor. But the recent case of Mardan Hospital, where we protected two women nurses, but still there is one issue with victim blaming is, most of the time, why women are not coming. I was talking to someone, because in 2019, the KP government and then the federal government and then Punjab government, they enacted another law, Women Property Right Act. So there are more than 400 petitions for the property right as compared to the harassment at the workplace. Because the harassment at the workplace, women have to cross barrier within their family, because family says, ये कुछ होने नहीं वाला और आपको बदनामी अलग होगी. So when the family is so scared, you don't get justice, and the media will you will be on the media. And the second thing was that social media, when used against the working women, in most of the cases where they use abusive language for women health workers, women polio workers, and the working women. So that was one challenge. But when we refer, because that was not our jurisdiction, so we refer 35 women cases to the cybercrime unit, and then that was the message for the health department. The women, this is not the ombudsperson jurisdiction, so they can go to the cybercrime unit under the PICA. Then there is another issue, because in most of my cases, I realize when any woman or a girl, they filed their petition. The men in that institution, they start they start campaigning against her because why she went to the ombudsperson office. At the same time, she got less support from her other women in the same institution, because the men, their club is very strong and the women nexus are very weak in such institutions. And at the same time, I most of the time say it's like the men get together and they try to negotiate with that girl or woman. Please, you have to withdraw this is the matter of your institution. You are defaming this institution because of your petition. We have to save our institution because of these harassment cases. It's not good to go to the ombudsperson. And at the same time, even within the government institution, when I conducted my first session with my focal persons, so the one of the focal person said, please, you have to sensitize girls because they are too much dependent on their makeup and their looks. So अगर ये makeup करके ना आए तो फिर दफ्तरों के माहौल से ही रह सकते हैं. So I said, why women makeup is so, you are so vulnerable and naive to control your emotion, because the women can they can attract to a man, but they can't most of the time because this is our traditional setup. So I think this is basically some of the issues within the law where we are, and hopefully with new amendment, this law will be more stronger. At the same time, we are trying to get more space for this law at the provincial level. After 18 amendment, we already in KP have 2 amendments. In 2020 law, we strengthened this institution, and we are still planning to have this institution at par with other ombudsman institution or ombudsperson institution, because one of the structural issue with this institution, where within the institutional setup, it's considered like a subsidiary of social welfare or a women institution, because it took 2 years in KP. I was negotiating with all the secretary, establishment, admin, law, and the chief secretary. This institution should be like the main ombudsperson institution. So luckily, I got support from the chief secretary and the 4 provincial secretaries. So now we are with the law department, and we got our autonomy as ombudsperson institution. Otherwise, the ombudsperson institution, whether it was in Punjab or in Balochistan, luckily in Sindh, Justice Shah Nawaz, retired Justice Shah Nawaz is there. So he established the writ of the institution, and we follow that example, and now we also separated ourselves from the social welfare as a independent autonomy. So
Thank
I
you.
think
Yeah.
this is the one of initiative I particularly want to share, because an autonomous or institution with some authority can serve better.